right, here we go. Gambling Chronicles, number 11. This one's going to be titled Good Sports Betting Partners. Got a good question last week. It was, you spoke about what bad partnerships can look like, but can you elaborate on what good partnerships look like? All right, so this is like a loaded question, so I'm going to try and get into what good partnerships look like. What different types of partnerships are there? Who do they benefit? What are fair terms for the different types of partnerships? I'll tackle that one first. Fair terms for the different types of partnerships, okay? I'm not going to get into the breakdown of exactly this percentage, that percentage, but the fair terms for different types of partnerships is what's fair for everybody. And everybody's got to find common ground. They're all different. Everything's different. Every partnership's different. I mean, a lot of them might be set up the same way, but there's always different percentages to go around, depending on how many people are involved, etc. So what's fair for everybody is what's fair. And you just need to be doing it for a little while to understand what that is. And if you're doing this for a little while, you'll kind of have an idea on what that is. You know, one thing I'm going to get into here, what different types of partnerships are there and who do they benefit? Well, you know, there's, let me see if I can find this tweet. Should be here somewhere. But it was, I can't find this tweet right now. I thought I had it bookmarked, but I will kind of break down what it was. It was like, what would you do first? Originate, top down, content creator / pick seller, or would you rather, or like a top-down steam chaser? Now, I think being an originator gives you the most freedom, by far, unless you get some huge operation set up and you're not doing a lot of the work. That's a different story. You can go many different ways. I mean, you can have all the originators, you can do top day, you can do whatever you want, you know, when you scale to a certain size. But my opinion is, okay, content creator, very difficult. Like, that's probably harder to do than any of this other stuff if you're looking to make massive amounts of money. I'm not saying you can't make money as a content creator, but how many people do you know that are going to like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million followers, getting all this ad money and sponsorship money? The pick sellers are getting that, but I would never, ever want to be a pick seller. Especially, you know, like, it's just, you're just preying on weak people that don't know anything. So yeah, that's something I would never want to do. I think, you know, top down's fine, but I would try originating first, okay? Maybe back test some stuff. Even if and when I say back test, it's not like I'm like this computer whiz or anything. And some people hear the back test. Just track some result, try something, try anything, and just track the results and see if it works. And, you know, if you can get a sample after doing something for a little while, maybe try betting it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Now, I think it's harder to be an originator in 2025 than it ever was. I mean, when I get into this in 2016, it was easy. I probably could have chosen any sport and been able to do it. Or I can't imagine like the top-down stuff 10 years ago, like how easy that stuff was. Just, you know, market moves, just blast it here, blast it there, whatever. It's so much easier. And I just know that because I was originating then and I'm originating now. And it's just night and day on how much more difficult it is now. Like, if I was starting now, I don't know if I'd be able to do it. I just was lucky that it was so soft that I've been able to adapt the concept as it went on. But I would try that first because I think originating gives you the most freedom in a sense. But at the end of the day, being a mover account getter is going to work for the most people, but you just need to be able to be social, and you need to be able to identify if someone's trying to screw you or not up front when you're talking to them. So you need some street smarts to you, and just be able to pick up like whether someone's bullshitting or not right out the gate. Top down, fine, but I just think originating has more, originating just has more freedom to it. And you kind of know your schedule. And I think as a top-down bettor, you can kind of choose your own schedule, but you're almost at the mercy of when the games play in certain markets that you're really attacking as a top-down bettor. And as an originator, you just kind of know exactly when you have to do what every day, and it's just like clockwork. Bing, 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 bing. But I've never been a top-down guy, so I can't give a great opinion on that. It just seems like a lot of the guys that are strictly top-down are working a lot more, putting in a lot more hours than most originators that I know. It could be different for every level there, but the bottom line is, no matter what, you need to find accounts and you need to network. So no matter which path you choose, you need to find the accounts. If you're a good top-down bettor, you need accounts. You need to find them. If you're an originator, you need accounts. You need to find them. And if you're an account, if you're just a mover, you need to find accounts too. So you need a constant stream of accounts no matter what you do. So that's like the most important skill, is being able to network and get accounts. And there's nowhere better to go and do that than at BetBash. I just can't stress that enough. Like the first, I don't know how many BetBashes. I think I've been to 2 BetBashes, but the first one was like, I met some guys. But last year was a lot different. I met a lot of guys. Maybe it's because, and a lot of it probably has to do with like my increased social media, on like Twitter or whatever. I mean, it's not like I'm some huge account to follow, but 2 years ago I had 450, maybe, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 followers. Now I have like close to 5,000 followers, and most of them aren't bots. Most of them are like organic people that have followed me from either my content or whatever, but that leads to meeting people at BetBash. But even if you're not like known a little bit, you can still meet people. I mean, you just go to every event at BetBash and meet people, and you will meet people. Not all are going to work out. You filter out the bad guys from the good guys. Be easy to tell, and if it's not, then you will learn. You'll learn who to talk to and who not to talk to. So back to this week's episode. I want to give an update on a guy who owes me money. And I actually spoke about this on a prior episode. One of my buddies, poker buddy, fell into some financial straits. I was staking him, loaned him like $14K, and we still talk from time to time. The money's never come up. I've never asked him once for the money. Finally, I did. I said, hey, it's been 4 or 5 years now, and he's in a better spot. He's going to stop paying me. So don't be afraid to ask people if they owe you money. I used to be a hound on it. If somebody owed me money, I would just be up their ass all the time. And that's how you should be. I've become more lax on that, and I try not to loan money. This was a certain situation. I was staking this guy. He went broke. We're in the middle of the pandemic. He was about to get evicted. And he wasn't bullshitting me. I believed him. I helped him out. And and if I know someone's going to pay me back, sometimes I'll loan them the money. But there's other cases where I won't. There's a guy who I talked to him on the phone 6 weeks ago about something that really good that happened in his life that I knew about, and then he hits me up to borrow $1,000, and I'm just like, it's not that, it's a pain in the ass loaning money. It's a negative free roll. It's something else you need to think about, and it's just stupid. If you need to borrow $1,000. I'm not saying you're doing something wrong, but whatever. It's not a lot of money, and it's just a negative free roll against you. So I would advise on trying not to loan money or getting people into positions that might not have the ability to pay you back. This guy probably would have paid me back, but it's not a situation you want to be in, just loaning money out to people all the time. Because then you get that reputation, and more people start asking you for money, and more and more and more and more. And I have a big story about the biggest one that happened, and it all got paid back, but it's going to make a great podcast one day, but I can't do that podcast yet. But it is going to be great when it does come. Speaking of great, the Trump tariffs. I'm going to get into that in the middle of this episode. The extreme benefits of the Trump tariffs. Shout out Mr. Peanut Butter. Yeah, those Trump tariffs, They've been awesome, and I'll get into that later in the episode. Don't want to do too much politics on this show, but I'll make a special case for this one. Health update. Health update before I get into this stuff. Health update, doing well with the gym. 2 weeks in a row, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, clockwork, 10K steps a day. I've been very active. Diet, off the rails a little bit last weekend with Easter, but jumped right back on it. Just like riding a bike. I feel good. Spring's here, and just trying to, just be positive with everything. And if fall off, get right back on. Right back on. But yeah, the activity's been up. That's great. So, good partnerships, and I'll speak on some bad partnerships or maybe some mistakes I've made in the past in certain situations that I probably could have and should have dealt with better. So 2010-ish, somewhere around there, probably later. It was a few years into my poker career. My poker volume was down for a little while. And there were games that I could play that I couldn't afford to play. I could have played, but I could have went broke, and that's probably what I should have did. I probably should have went broke, then seek the staking deal. But I guess there's arguments both ways. Some poker players play better when they're staked. Some players don't. I know guys, and I think this is the dumbest thing. They want to be staked, and they'll give away 25% of their cash game income for life, which is dumb. But they feel like they play better. I think it's like a mental thing. They feel better, and I think it's mentally insane actually. They feel better when they're playing on somebody else's money because they feel like they need to win for that person. So they'll make better decisions than if they're playing with their own money. Which if that's the case, you just need to get some mental game coaching. And the sports bettors that chase like that too, it's all about the mental game and just knowing the math of how much you're going to win and how much you're going to lose and not making decisions emotionally. But anyhow, so I was staked at this time. This guy, Tom Corral, very big winning poker player from he still plays now. He's won a couple of bracelets. He put me in a staking deal where I designed the terms, he agreed. This was public. The terms were out there. But one thing I did put in the terms was I can quit anytime I want. And I did. I quit after I don't remember how long it was. It was probably a week or 2 weeks. I won I don't know how much I won. It could have been 10, 20,000. I don't remember. But I won. The games I was playing in were beatable. I gave him his portion, paid him off. And I think I went back to him maybe to do another deal later on, and he didn't want to do it. And that was probably part of the reason why. It's because I quit on this deal. Now, some people would look at that and say, hey, that ethically, that's not good. But there was terms in the contract that said, I can quit anytime I want for any reason, whether it's, I don't like dealing with you or I'm losing or I don't feel comfortable or whatever. I can quit this anytime I want. But there's other people that look at this and just say, that's kind of in bad faith. He staked you. You should probably ride it out a little bit longer. But there wasn't, he was kind of more doing this for fun. I think he was doing, it was a business thing. He probably knew I was going to win. But it was probably more of a fun sweat thing for him. But anyhow, I got out of that deal. Maybe looking back on it, I would not have, maybe I would have played longer. So I've had conversations with people about stuff like this. It's about the relationship, and that was just kind of it wasn't like I stabbed him in the back because it was within my right to do, but maybe I should have played for the spirit of the deal. Should have played a little bit longer and not just, pulled that little asterisk out of there and said, hey, this says I can quit when I want. But anyhow, I quit when I wanted, and I got out of that deal. And I've also been staked by other guys at a couple of different points. I had a guy, Jerry from Pittsburgh, stake me, great guy. But that was always in our deal, so I could quit whenever I want. It always happened. I would always win a ton, and then I would quit the staking deal, and then I would get the negative variance, the variance right there. The negative stuff would come. I'd get beat down, and then whatever. That lasted for a little while, but then eventually I just took off and went on my own. And yeah, at the time, it's just I wasn't putting in a ton of volume. It's after Black Friday, volume wasn't going in, and yeah, I needed to be staked, and that's what I did. I had a family to take care of. My stepson was 13. I got a wife, I got a couple of dogs, I got a mortgage payment. Um, so whatever, my bankroll probably hovered down to like 5K at that point or something like that. Instead of just going all in and playing on my own, I got staked a few times. And some people could argue either way. You should just torch it to the ground before you need to do something, borrow off credit cards, and then get back into it before you want to give away 25, 30, or 50%, whatever the deal is, before you give that thing away. So there's some spots you have to think about, in sports too, where you need to think about the relationship and your reputation, because both carry a lot of weight. There's another time there was a guy. I knew this guy that was an originator, and there was a guy that I was giving accounts to, and the originator was putting stuff into the accounts, and I was asking the guy with the accounts, like, why isn't this stuff going in? He couldn't give me a good answer. So I was friends with the originator. I played poker with him. I just called him up one day, and then I asked him if he wanted to take accounts directly from me. And, the guy that I was giving the accounts to, the originator was betting into him, he said that was like a no-no. And I'm like, well, I know him, I don't know, whatever. I'm just trying to find out why the stuff isn't going in there. I have a surplus of accounts. You don't just deserve to get them all. And, every situation's different. And, I've talked to some people about that, and they're like, it was fine what you did. You knew the originator. You weren't going behind his back trying to, fuck him over or whatever. But, maybe somebody would be on the other side. So you have to be careful with some of these deals that you get into, or not deals, but just specific situations, because someone might get triggered. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. That's why, anytime something like this comes up, I kind of have 2, 3, 4 people who I'll bounce stuff off and just be like, hey, what do you think? What do you think about this? And just people whose opinions you respect about this. And, to give an example, Porter's a name that I've brought up a few times over the a couple times through these episodes. He's a guy that, maybe he'll ask me something or I'll ask him something, and I respect his opinion because, he's been through all this stuff too. So you need to find smart people that are doing what you're doing, that you can bounce ideas off of. And I think that makes a good partner. Somebody that can, even if you're not doing a lot of business with them within sports betting, that you can talk to about specific situations like that. You don't want to, ruin relationships over short-term money, because you're going to, there's a lot of money out there, and you're going to make infinite money. It's more about making the correct decisions on what to do, based on ethical situations. And I'm going to actually get into something. I'm going to get into something about that in a minute. Let me see here. Yeah, as long as you're a winning bettor, don't work on short-sighted things that are not good for your reputation. It's not a good way to go. Because, like I said, with volume, you'll get there. I just know it's nearly impossible for me to have a losing year. I'm not saying it's possible, but it's nearly impossible. Doing, just because I've been through this. I've been doing it for so long. I know who to work with, who not to work with. And I'm never putting too many eggs in one basket. Everything's just kind of spread around. So don't make bad decisions. Just try and be short-sighted, because you'll get a bad reputation. And there's a lot of people out there that do that, and that's how they try to get ahead, and then they get a bad reputation. Nobody wants to work with them, and there's quite a few guys like that. And their stories are out there. Good partners know when you have to do things. Typically this time of year, I'm not doing much. I'm just, like I said last week, I'm gardening, I'm mowing my lawn, just doing shit with my kid, because I don't have to I don't have to do this every day. I don't. I'm just in a position where I don't have to. And I like to enjoy the summer. But this year, things have moved in a different direction. We're doing a lot more stuff now. I have more partners now. You start brainstorming with different people, you come up with more stuff to do. And today, one of my partners who's usually watching the screen and doing a lot of the screen work, moving a lot of the stuff, talking with other groups that we deal with. His dad's in town. He's tired. He had to take a nap. I said, don't worry about it. So if you see me peeking around or tallying some stuff up, I might have to take a quick break right in the middle of the podcast and just do what I have to do. But it's just like, sure, go take a nap. I'll watch the screen for a few hours here. It's not that big of a deal. And good partners understand that. Some don't. Some guys are ruthless, and you don't want to work with those guys. Unless there's something you should be doing and you're just blowing it off all the time. That's a different story. But ideally you want coverage 24/7. But sometimes that's just not the case. People have shit they need to do. And like I said before, if you're going to miss bets, and that's just the way it is. And personally for me, I don't care, because at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to make as much money, not as I want to, but as long as I'm putting in volume, I'm going to make money, because I'm not betting on coin flips. I have an edge, or the people that I deal with have an edge. So I don't care if I miss a day, 2 days, a week, whatever. Sometimes you have to take time off. Life gets in the way, and you should take that time off. But anyhow, who knows? This thing grows, maybe I'll hire a couple of people. I don't know. But right now, things are going in a good direction. Here's another thing. I'm going to give you a pretty good story which came up recently. So good partners, this is one thing before I get to that. Good partners will give you your fair share, and just not turn in crap, and then you find out later they're betting 20 times as much. That sucks when shit like that happens, but it does happen. And then those are the type of people you don't want to deal with. Those people are snakes. There's this guy I've been working with, young kid, originates a bunch of different sports. Maybe not, or maybe originates a strong word. He's probably doing more top down, but he's profitable. He's good at what he does. He works hard. He's done some good stuff for me. I've helped him out. He wanted more volume in certain areas, and I know a lot of these bigger groups now. So I, asking nothing out of the deal, and I could have. I just said, here, I'm going to introduce you to this group. They're going to get you down volume. Go work with them. Here you go. I made the introduction, and they're working well together. And it's just, and I say that all the time. Like, yeah, I'll take as many partners as whatever, but I don't, like every guy I know is not going to be a fit with me, and I'm not going to be able to be a fit with everybody, but I might know somebody that you could work with, and that's what I did for this guy. He wanted some prop builder volume, and I know this group would be able to give him prop builder volume, with high volume prop builder volume. Some groups might say, hey, I only want, I want shit that's going to be 10, 15% ROI, and that's it. A couple of plays a day. Other groups might be like, hey, we'll take 1, 2, 3% ROI and high volume or whatever. I'm not saying that's what he wins at, but some groups will say, that's fine. That's what we want. Stuff like that. That's just what we do. So every situation's different. I think good partners will not go out of their way, but they'll do what's best for their partners and maybe try to help them out, because, maybe the person will reciprocate that down the line in another way. Good partners don't go behind somebody's back and steal plays. Now, there's a situation where, some of the people I'm working with were getting a sheet of plays or getting plays sent to them from somebody who happened to be a guy that I work with very closely, who, you know, somebody that was moving some of these plays noticed, because one of his buddies originates them, or a couple of his buddies originate them. And, you know, I got on a call with him. This happened like very fast. It just wasn't like this dragged on for a while. And, you know, we had a conversation about it. And I just said, hey, I'm going to talk to the guy who moves this stuff, who for the originators, and because I'm friendly with him. And, you know, I made that phone call, explained the situation, and just said, hey, like, these plays are getting out there, they're getting scraped. Like, I want to know his thoughts on what the ethics are in a situation like that. And you know, his main point to me was, as long as you're not the one that's like directly scraping them from me, I would be fucking pissed. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not scraping your plays. I could if I wanted to. I mean, very easily, because we do a lot of business together in other ways where I would be able to see this guy's plays if I wanted to. But I wasn't. So my solution was just give me the plays, and maybe I can help you and get down for you. And that worked out. And, you know, some people might not have did what I did in that situation, and just, you know, found creative ways to take those plays and just bet them. And those people get bad reputations in this business. It's all about being honest. And, you know, and it's all about just doing the right thing. And if you do the right thing and you're honest, then things will always work out for you. So, yeah, this worked out. It was an easy solution. And you just don't want to get labeled somebody who is going out there trying to steal somebody's plays. And it happens all the time. It's almost an honor when it does happen to you, because it happens to me a lot during football. People will send me my own plays and be like, hey, is this good? Someone just sent me this. And it'll be in the exact text that I sent it out to somebody else. And I'm like, yeah, I sent that an hour ago or 2 hours ago or whatever, or I sent it to this group. And, you know, in some ways it's an honor. And I know, you know, you're not going to be able to hold in 100% of everything that goes out. It's just, once this stuff, it's like a fire, and it spreads. And some way it's an honor, but at the end of the day, you do kind of want to get as much down on your own stuff as you can. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to happen. But whatever, you see this stuff all the time. There's some plays that we were getting from a prop originator, and the first day we were working with this guy, we sent the plays out. Someone bet them. And then some bookie got them and sent them to someone who sent them back to one of the guys we work with, like in the exact text format. And it's, you know, we just went down the chain. We figured out what happened. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was just a bookie that was betting the stuff out and giving it to somebody. The bookie knew that there was sharp stuff going into these accounts, and he was just taking it and sharing it with somebody who shared it with somebody who was betting the stuff. So, and this stuff happens a lot. It's not uncommon. But at the end of the day, like, you just want to be doing things ethically the right way, or you get labeled with a bad reputation. There are plenty of people out there that are like that don't do good business, and they're trying to sneak around and make as much money for themselves, and that's their only priority. But it's about the relationship. The relationship's the most important thing. And, you know, that's being ethical and honest is part of being a good partner. You know, let me see here. You know, some situations I take less money. Having guys that move plays for me who've been maybe moving stuff for me for 5 years. Maybe, you know, I might make XX less money because like I could go another route, but it's almost like they're part of the family now, and you gotta, you know, you want to take care of those people, and it's not all about the money at the end of the year. It's about, you know, keeping your family and your close group of people and the people you work with, keep everybody happy, and just, you know, maybe I'll take a little bit less money. Some people might think I'm a fool for that, but That's just how it is. Maybe it'll change in an extreme situation, but right now it's fine to do it that way. Um, there's some situations I've gotten into which I think has made me a good partner. Like one of my buddies was kiosk jamming in the middle of the country in another state, and he appealed, did this, did that, didn't get any money back. He spent a ton of time on it, a lot of stress, missed time from work to go in for these appeals, etc. And he got nothing out of it. But then, I kind of thought about it, and I went talked to a couple sharp guys that I know and said, hey, this guy, what should I do in this situation? Does he just eat it with me? And a couple of sharp guys I talked to said, no, he should probably get something for this. And I don't know, the number I came up with was like $5,000. I just asked two guys, how much do you think? One guy said like 4, one guy said 5. So I sent the guy, I don't know, I might have sent him $4,500. I said, hey, thanks, you did a tremendous job. You did everything you could. Didn't work out. And, some situations, you just got to do that. Maybe I didn't have to do that, but I did do that. And there's other groups that might just say, hey, fuck him. I'm not giving him a dime, like his job's to do that, and that's part of his job, but, every situation's different. Another thing I wanted to touch on is with misgrades, mistakes, etc. They happen, and I think some people overreact when some of this stuff happens sometimes, like why is it happening, etc. But mistakes happen, and in the end, they're going to even out. If it's not being done intentionally and it's just a mistake, mistakes even out in the end. Now, you're not going to get a huge sample where it's going to be 50-50 on whether they benefit, positively or negatively, but I just try not to think about them because there's probably a zillion mistakes that have been made in the past, and if you spend time thinking about them, it's going to get you stressed out. So, a guy I did a lot of poker business with, he used to tell me, he said the same thing. You just think about it. Did I do this right, that right? All the amount of money you maybe lost from, maybe a mistake here, a mistake there. It's just not worth thinking about it. But these mistakes do happen, misgrades happen, etc. And everything evens out in the end. So just don't, if something happens here and there, it's going to happen. It's just part of the cost of doing business, just like getting stiff. Good partners are going to understand, and maybe they'll help you eat it, no matter what the situation is. As long as, they think that you're not stealing from them. But there's other groups that are just like, no, we want our cut, etc. But there's a lot of groups that, there's some groups that'll say, we'll eat the entire stiff with you. Maybe if it happens too many times, they might just tell you no, but some groups have that policy. Some groups, some good partners will at least eat some of the cost with you of the stiff, but you got to remember there's originators, maybe at the top of the food chain somewhere, that the money has to get back to them. So some groups might say, hey, well, we'll cover this much, you cover this, we have to pay the originator. No matter what, his piece is guaranteed. So, there's certain situations like that come up where originators have to be taken care of. And, those situations they're all different. So you have to just consider everything that's going on within the situation. And are you being stolen from? Is somebody taking advantage of you? Speaking of which, I'm getting a message now that somebody's getting stiffed for something. I don't know. I'll have to look at this message after this episode. But anyhow, good partners, they're gonna give constructive criticism, point out strengths and weaknesses. Whether it's good stuff, bad stuff. It's good to get constructive criticism from brutally honest people that kind of know. One of my partners is like, hey, this derivative we're winning 80% 2 years in a row. Like, maybe we should just focus on this and just cut out some of the other fat, which is probably true. And I talked about this last week. I never noticed a lot of this stuff because I just won. I just won all the time, nonstop. Just every week was just win, 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 win. Huge volume, and it's gotten harder the last couple of years. The last 2 or 3 years has gotten harder and harder and harder. But there probably is certain spots of the market where we excel, and I think we have a beat on that, and I think it's going to change a little bit on how I attack the market this year. That's because I have a good partner who gave me good constructive criticism, took a little bit of a deep look into it, and kind of figured out why that stuff's winning, or maybe why the book's pricing something completely different than I would price it. And I know why they're pricing certain things that way, but they can't be right all the time. And people out there, they think that these books are putting out like the best lines. They're not. They can't defend every inch of the turf, and they will put out bad lines. Anyhow, let me see here. Good partners, sharp partners. They're going to know their edges inside and out. They might have the sense to pull the plug when the wheel's falling off, or they just sense something's off, and they'll turn it. They'll tell you, hey, my edges, I don't think it's there. We're going to pause here. It's not good. That's a sharp partner. Good partners aren't selfish. I had a guy on a free roll, and he more said this because he got no, he wasn't on a free roll. He was on shared risk, but he said he wished he was on a free roll after he got crushed. And I'm like, yeah, but then I'm paying the whole thing, so like, whatever. And he had just gotten crushed. He probably wasn't feeling the best because his stuff just, it was absolute dog shit for a few weeks. But yeah, don't be selfish. Just you got to always be willing to accept your losses, and that's it. Just move on. That's why it's like good to not be over emotional. Just try and stay balanced all the time. Good partners stay balanced. Have great communication on everything. Someone sends you a message, you should be responding within a certain amount of time, especially when it's like due to business. And most good partners will. And if people aren't responding to your messages after a day, 2 days, 3 days, and you're like in a physical, business relationship with them, maybe they're not the greatest partner to have. I try to answer every message very quickly. The only time that'll lag is if like I'm having a call with somebody about something that, about maybe doing business with them, that might lag. And, like this week I told people that I need to talk to maybe Wednesday or Thursday, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Things get busy, and, you don't get to all those calls. Good partners are going to give a decent leash to originators. If they give them a shot, they should, and you should give them a shot unless they just fall flat on their face. Because you just never know. I've talked about this last week. They could be the best in their market. Some people just cut those leashes too short before they can even find out. So if you have an idea somebody might be doing something well, you might have to take a loss sometimes to find out if they actually are good. But if they do win, you can ride it out. The best partnership that I ever get into, or one of the best partnerships I ever get into, was, all I was doing was betting my own stuff. I was handing accounts off. Those were getting crushed winning. And then the stuff I was originating was winning. But one of the best ones was a good friend of mine who originates different sports. But this, I don't know if he can beat. I don't think he could beat NBA now. But in 2021, he was able to beat just DraftKings at post for shitloads of units. Like, I know we won over 100 units, probably over 200 units that year. And he's betting 15 minutes before each game tips, just by, he's top down. That's it. they were either slow or he sees something move somewhere, and we just massacred the market. And like just that one relationship that I had, probably it makes up for any of the bad relationships I've had with partners. So, and that's being results oriented too. But at the end of the day, you do kind of have to be results oriented thinking when it comes to dealing with this stuff. If you hit one lottery ticket and you lose 9 lottery tickets, that one lottery ticket might be worth than the other 9 combined. So you're gonna go through lulls. You just need to find the right guys to work with. And I feel like I'm working with most of the best guys for most of the stuff that I do, but still take shots on other guys. And maybe you do find a guy who's great. It works out for you and it works out for them. That's the most important thing. Like I said at the start of this, the best partnerships are the ones that work for both people. Good partners also pay on Mondays. Good partners will pay if you carry it, and then Wednesday you say, hey, I need that $2,000 you owe me. They can send it any method. Good partners can send any method that you want. And that's very important. Most of that stuff gets taken care of Mondays, Tuesdays, maybe Wednesday, but if you need something at the end of the week and someone owes you money, usually somebody that's a good partner will be able to handle that from you. Let me see here. We talked about this. Good partners are attentive to DMs, notifications, but you got to remember, people get very, very, very busy. So, you can't be bothering very busy people with trivial shit. If it's important, though, they usually will get right back to you. And like I said, if it's about getting into business, sometimes that takes time because people are just super busy. Good partners don't just blow things off and forget things. It's not often I forget things, but I remember one specific time where I kind of, let me see here. So this was for the guy I was just talking about that crushed the NBA that year. He had all his stuff ready. It was at night. I was extremely tired, low sleep. My son was 2. So, parents out there know how it is from the night routine, 5, 6, 7. This was like closer to bed. At the time, we didn't have my kids' bedtime under control completely, which is another thing parents know about until you get, sometimes it gets dialed right in. It wasn't dialed in. It was one of those tough nights. And, I had the originator sending me plays, and I had, or the guy that's coming up with the plays sending me the plays. I'm sending them to my friend who's the runner, and I just totally forgot about it. I started doing one thing, I totally forgot that was even on my plate. And, I picked up my phone an hour and a half later, and I was like, oh shit, how the fuck did I forget about this? Sorry, guys. And the guy that drove there, it was like 2 hours from his house he drove. Now, he'd hit a couple casinos on the way, so it wasn't like it was a lost cause completely, but he had to drive maybe an extra hour and a half or something. I apologized. Once in a while, something like that might come up, but very rare. But, to make things easier, I should have just had the guy dealing with the originator directly, and that just cut your work down. And some people are worried about giving their partners up to somebody else, not giving them up, but introducing them in fear that maybe, someone's going to, stop working with you, you get cut out of the equation, etc. Which does happen. I mean, there's dirty people out there that'll do stuff like that. And it's a viable concern, but in this situation, I should have just directed them together. But this was around the time that when I first really started getting into, working, because most of the stuff in the beginning was all mine. Now I'm bringing on other guys that are doing stuff, and, I just maybe didn't efficiently run it or I should have run it more efficiently than that. What makes a good runner? Availability, availability and willing to go the extra mile. Like, some guys, have full-time jobs. They can only go certain times, etc. But knowing that somebody's going to be where they say they're going to be or where they tell you they're going to be is very important. And if they're willing to go the extra mile, that's very important. we need this. Like, this is important. You got to go. And I've been fortunate that, all the runners that I've worked with have been great, just super. And, what else makes, makes you a good partner is if you win and then your runners are making money. If you can't win, then your runners aren't going to like working for you. And, I've had to come up with deals for one of my runners one year where we got stuck a ton of money, and I had to put all his red to the side or he was going to quit. Or, his wife's telling him, hey, you haven't made any money. You've been doing this for 2 months. And, a good partner will think about that and come up with creative ways so you can make money and maybe can work off the red progressively as we go or something like that. Because, it's hard to find good people. And if you don't come up with those constructive deals, now you got to find somebody else. And then are they going to be as reliable as the guy that's been going? Good partners communicate. I had a guy, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I had a guy come to me and was like, hey, blah, 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 I like your content, this and that. And, he's talking about these high limit accounts he can give me, et cetera, et cetera. So I got all, and then he mentioned somebody's name who's like a pretty big guy in this space. And, I actually contacted this guy, and he, took a few days, but we got on the phone, and, he agreed. He's like, this is great stuff. This is, this is what we should be all doing, I just wanted to make sure that, I wasn't taking all these accounts from him, and this guy was bringing them to me now, which I didn't have to do, but I just felt like it was the right thing to do, and I did, and I wanted to see if this guy was a good partner to work with. And that's what everybody should be doing. You should be kind of sharing information without sharing intimate details of certain specific things. Because some people do talk a little too much, and they tell too much stuff that they probably shouldn't to other people. But we had a good call, and he's like, yeah, this guy's great. Work with him. This is what has happened with him. And, if I don't make that call and don't talk to that person, maybe it's like a 6-figure mistake I have to eat. But, now I'm more confident that it's not, that it was just good. It's just like getting references on Originator. Someone's like, hey, I worked with so-and-so. And you check with them and you find out if they're the real deal, or are they good to work with, bad to work with. It's like a job interview, you got to check references. Good partners are non-confrontational and level-headed, Some guys aren't, and they'll never learn. Maybe they're just steam heads. But eventually, after doing things for so long, you have to figure out your mental side. Like, we had a guy who was originating a sport, probably one of the best originators in the world in sport, I would say. And, we were sending stuff into a mover, and then somebody that was moving for the mover was like, hey, this shit sucks. Like, he's challenging the originator to like all kinds of challenges and stuff. And like, I don't know, some people don't like that type of stuff. That's like middle school shit. Like, I can do this better than you, or whatever. Almost like gossipy type shit. And at the end of the day, it's just about business, If you don't want the stuff, just eat it. You don't have to say anything about it. Go ahead, eat it, book it, and you wind up getting crushed. But, you just got to try and be non-confrontational, level-headed, work on your mental game. Like, mine wasn't always where it is now. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on mental game and staying level-headed and not getting too heated over little things. But, another thing, elite partners, they're rarely paying you. You're just going to be paying them nonstop. If they're that good, the money's they're just never going to have to pay you because they win all the time. So you're just always paying them. And, if you're moving for elite partners or giving an elite partner an account, they're just winning and you're paying them. It's how it's going to be. So, you work with elite people that just get used to paying. That's it. And so you should always, good partners can always pay, no matter what the situation is. You need to be able to pay. You need to be able to pay every Monday, Tuesday, or whenever it's requested. Last story here before I end this. And this is an interesting story. I don't know if I told this story before or not, but I got linked up with this guy in like 2020 or 2021. And we're sending sharp stuff through there, obviously. The stuff I was originating was going into the account, and the stuff that the guy I work with now, who I've worked with for a while, who I give a lot of per head accounts to, his stuff was going into the account. My stuff was going into the account. And this guy that was like the middleman said, hey, you're going to deal with the bookie now. And he gave me to the bookie. I'm talking to the bookie, dealing with him every week, paying this, that. And he cut the prop limits from like 500 to like, I don't know, he cut them to like 100. And I'm like, he would have cut them to 0. Like I just knew something was going wrong. And I just said, hey, I know you're taking these plays and betting them out elsewhere, but we're going to want, I don't want 500 limits. I said, I want $1,000 limits or nothing. I mean, the account was so low, if he told me to fuck off, I would have been like, whatever. And then he gave me some sob story. Yeah, I'm a mom and pop bookie, I just look at your stuff and I cut off any accounts that look like this. He gave some kind of excuse, and one of my partners at the time was like, I think he's telling the truth. Like, I don't think so. And whatever. It was probably, I'm guessing he wasn't booking the stuff. I'm guessing he was just betting it out, scraping the screen, etc. This is 2020, 2021. And then it turns out like 5 years later, I get into a chat with him over something else. It turns out this guy's like one of the heads of one of the biggest syndicates in the world. So they were just, they were probably using the information, I would guess. I don't think they were booking it. But whatever, it's just the way things work. Like you just never know what's going on down the line, who's copying, who's doing what. And like, I don't even really care about that. Like, we have a good relationship now. I work with him now, but anytime I think of this story, I laugh about it because I was so dead set that I was right. And my buddy, who's really smart, was like, no, I think he's telling the truth. And, we kept betting it out for a while, and then whatever. That's kind of where I'm going to end this episode with that. But anyhow, don't know when I'll be back, but I'll be back at some point. If anyone has any suggestions, feedback, comments, what I should be doing besides getting this on other platforms, which I haven't done yet. I'm just keeping it on Spotify for now. They'll go on YouTube at some point. But any suggestions for episodes, etc., I'll get to it. At some point, maybe I'll have some guests. We'll see. But for now, I'm just going to talk about stuff that seems to be somewhat interesting. And, I'm getting a lot of feedback that people are enjoying these episodes. So I'm just going to keep doing episodes like this and try to come up with more topics. I mean, that's it. And just remember, no matter how hard you're struggling out there, you can do it. No matter what it is, whether it's betting, losing weight, anything you want to do, you can do it. Just think about it. Say, I can do it. Write it down. Get it done. There's a lot that can be accomplished. You just got to do it. Have a good week.